The Bridgewater Triangle is an area of about 200 square miles within southeastern Massachusetts. It is claimed to be a site of alleged paranormal phenomenon, ranging from UFOs to poltergeists, orbs, balls of fire, and other spectral phenomena. Various bigfoot-like sightings, giant snakes, and thunderbirds. Some historic places and landmarks in the Bridgewater Triangle are Dighton Rock, Profile Rock, Solitude Stone, and The Ledge. Hey everybody, welcome to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. I'm Christy Brower, here with my sister, co-host, and partner in crime, Katie Weaver. Hey Katie.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going. Trying to get ready to go camping, and I'll be honest, I have obviously had the luxury of having kids at home all these years that did a lot of that work, and so yeah. I just have the rodeo of making my camper bed, and good Lord, I feel like I need to send all of my kids a gift basket or something. That's awful. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Ours in our van is also as well. It's kind of like the worst part. We avoid it till the last possible minute because it's a pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've learned the hard way with this camper more than once, not to wait until you're tired and ready for bed to do something like that, or you will really be sorry.
That is so true.
So
that is very, very true.
Make it and have it all done before I even pull it out of my yard so that it's all done. And I felt like I needed to go to bed. My God.
Well, but now it's done.
Yeah.
We're hardcore campers, you guys. We're going 2 weekends in a row. Well, at least I am. You didn't really camp last weekend, but I did, and we're doing it again.
As hardcore as you can get when you're camping in self-contained units.
We're definitely glamping, but we don't have much time left before camping will be a thing of the past until next spring. So,
yeah,
looking forward to spending the time outside. Yes. And I would be amiss if I didn't mention my hair because I'm sure other people notice. It looks really red on camera, but it's actually hot pink. It's magenta. And I just got it done today, so it's super fresh, but I'm really happy with it.
Very cute.
Yeah, I used to have pink hair all the time. That was the thing I did for a long time.
Yeah.
And a couple years ago, I'm like, I'm in my mid-40s. Maybe people don't take me seriously when I have pink hair. And then, you know what I did now? I said, fuck them, and did it anyway.
Well, there you go.
There you go. So my pink hair is back. I love it.
Well, okay. Who says you have to adult when you're in your mid-40s?
I don't know. I think I was doing it to myself.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, today's show is a combination of paranormal and true crime. We like it when those two things cross over, don't we?
Yes. The intersection is kind of our sweetest spot.
Yes, it is. So we're going to talk about the Bridgewater Triangle today. Okay. And as we talk about it, well, at the end, I'm going to talk to you actually about a really significant true crime case that is a part of the Bridgewater Triangle that there are a lot of questions about. So,
okay.
The Bridgewater Triangle, I'm going to post, that's weird. Oh, there it is. So it's in southeastern Massachusetts. It's about a 200 square mile area.
Okay.
And it has been well known for a long, long time to be a hotbed of paranormal activity. Lots of UFO sightings and ghosts and Bigfoot and thunderbirds and Pukwudgies,
yeah.
Pukwudgies, all kinds of stuff that is pretty unexplainable. Oh, balls of fire. One of the big things I think is really interesting through here is that there's like disembodied fire that has no heat, but people see flames in various sites. And now lots of orbs. It's been known in some of the woods in the Bridgewater Triangle that people have seen snakes as wide as stovepipes.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yikes. So there's a lot of history in the Bridgewater Triangle between the colonists and the natives. And
Mhm.
as you can imagine, that involved a lot of colonists murdering natives and enslaving natives. And so some people think that the land through there is cursed.
Okay.
I gotta say that always pisses me off because
Mhm.
even in the being murdered and enslaved, it's still the natives' fault.
Yeah.
I don't like that whole the natives cursed the land thing. I always think that's
Mhm.
bullshit. But anyway, that's
Well, how
one of
many
the
times have
theories.
you heard, this must be buried, we must be on an ancient Indian burial ground if these things are happening? People say things like that as
Yeah,
in very blasé way, as if it's just, that's a normal thought. Or that
right,
because you're on an ancient native burial ground, even if you were, that for some reason that means that all these terrible things would be happening. Yeah.
right.
It's
I
actually
don't
pretty
like it.
racist.
I
Yeah.
think it's really racist.
Mhm.
So, of course, this place has been known in general as a sacred place for the Wampanoag native peoples. And Wampanoag is, I think, a white person's term for a bunch of tribes that have kind of combined.
Okay.
But there definitely are some sacred sites here. But there's also just a lot of other stuff. The first UFO sighting in this area was in 1607.
Wow.
I mean, stuff has been going down out here. So I'm going to tell you about some of the famous sites, and maybe you can give us some insight on what you think is going on out here.
Mhm.
And then we're going to talk about some satanic murders that happened
Okay. So
nearby.
before you do that, just let
Mhm.
me say, I'll just give you my initial gut feeling on it, and that's
Please do.
that this is an area where different dimensions are intersecting. It
Okay.
seems to me like, and there's places like that, other places like that on Earth too, where
Mhm.
multiple dimensions or layers, or however you classify that, if you classify that,
Mhm.
are coming together and perhaps a little more open and intersecting more than in other places. That's all.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, that I really strongly resonate with that. So let's talk first about Dighton Rock. This is Dighton Rock.
Hmm.
So Dighton Rock is this huge rock. It was out in a riverbed. It's now been moved because it was eroding, but it's covered in petroglyphs, as you could see. And the thing that's really weird about the petroglyphs is that no one has ever been able to figure out what language they are, or what where they have come from. So there are a
Mhm.
few thoughts on it that it may be an indigenous language, although that has never been actually identified or translated. There was some thoughts that it might be an ancient Phoenician language, but
Hmm.
again, no translation.
Mhm.
Some people thought maybe it was Norse. And then other people thought maybe it was Portuguese
Hmm.
because there are other rocks in the area that do have Portuguese on them. But this rock is pretty it's just very mysterious because it clearly indicates the presence of someone writing in a language that we cannot identify.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of UFO activity out there, so of course this also kind of then leaps to, is this some kind of an alien language? But it is a weird thing that we
Mhm.
can't even identify the language that it is written in. So that's one of the mysterious things in the area.
That I really do believe is a native language.
Okay.
I feel like it's just a really ancient one that those peoples had died out probably before white people even came to the Americas. Like it's just been there for a really long time.
Okay.
And I think that we wouldn't be able to interpret it because they are long, 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 long gone. But I do
Hmm.
think that was an indigenous.
And that the language is probably lost. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's sad.
yeah.
I think that's very sad.
Really old though.
Okay.
Really.
So next is Profile Rock. This is Profile
Mm-hmm.
Rock. Profile Rock is, or Anawan Rock, is believed to be a famous site for the Wampanoag people. Anawan was a um, famous native, and that his ghost can be seen sitting on the rock with his legs crossed or his arms outstretched. So there's this story that the natives, in a show of peace to the white man, which, boy, don't we know that never worked out, gave to them what is known as the wampum belt. And the wampum belt was this really important artifact to the Wampanoag. And of course, the white guys took it and never gave it back. And so it is said that Profile Rock is haunted by Anawan until the wampum belt is returned. And this is a really eerie place. People do not like to go here because it feels like someone is watching you. The hair on the back of your neck will stand up. And of course, sometimes there is seen a native man sitting on the rock,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, staring out. And I think maybe white people don't like this place because it brings up some guilt. I don't
Right.
know.
Some weird feelings. I I do feel like he haunts that spot. Partly just because it resembles him, and because I feel like people that it was the people that started doing ceremony there, and like this just is a really meaningful spot for him. I don't really feel like it has anything to do with the belt being returned. That was a
Okay,
wash a long time ago. I don't feel like that's what it has to do with at all. I feel like it has everything to do with him trying to still watch over his people and watch over his lands and what have
sure,
you. And because that is a spot where people expect to see him, and so he shows up. Working as a medium, one thing that you learn over time is that people that have passed to be seen by humans with their physical eyes is really rare and a huge thrill. And
yeah,
we've seen other spirits who will come back to meaningful places or even the place where they died and kind of continue to be in that spot quite a bit because people are more likely to see them there.
yeah,
And I think that's probably the most likely reason that he's there. It's not about revenge or anything along those lines. He's there for his people. He
yeah.
always has been.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. That's an awesome way of looking at it, and I think you're right that people want to see him, so he shows up
Yeah,
where they will. Yeah, but people do find it eerie. But I think we're talking about mostly white people find it eerie.
probably.
Makes
Yeah.
sense because, of
Well,
course,
yeah.
this whole
I'm guessing
area,
that his people find it to be a sacred place,
right?
not an eerie place, but a blessed place. Yeah.
And this area in Massachusetts was a very heavily populated native place
Yeah.
at the time that white settlers arrived. So a huge amount of life was lost here and their land taken, and,
Yeah.
all the ignorant crap that our ancestors did when they showed up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so next is the Solitude Stone, um, or known as the Suicide Stone. So
Yikes.
this rock was found in West Bridgewater, and it was found next to the body of a missing person who had actually taken their own life. And I'll tell you what it says. And you can tell me if you know what this means. I've kind of deciphered it a bit, but all ye who in future days walk by Nunkatesset stream, love not him who hummed his lay cheerful to the parting beam, but the beauty that he wooed.
This was never my strong suit in college.
I know.
Oh.
They did eventually identify the poet who wrote it.
Mhm.
But this rock it's another place that feels very eerie.
Mhm.
This person died there. It's thought that maybe some other people also died there. You know how you'll get a place that's sort of popular for suicides? Sadly, this seems
That
to be that
horrible.
in this area.
Yeah, well, it's like that forest in Japan.
Yeah, kind of
People
like that.
literally go to kill themselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of a weird one. And this last one, so this is the ledge. So the ledge, or the Assinut Ledge, is reportedly a site where people see ghosts standing on the ledge and then they leap to their deaths and disappear, particularly a lady in white. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there always a lady in white in these kinds of stories?
Of course. Yeah.
Always a lady in white. But
If there's
so
not a
there,
lady in white, there's definitely a man in a top hat.
yes,
Right?
definitely,
Both. Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. So, but there have been a lot of paranormal research groups that come through and do various kinds of paranormal research.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember this is 200 square miles, and I'm not even scratching the surface on all the stories. I just wanted to give some of them. But there was a paranormal researcher there. His name was John Brightman, and he was standing out there on the ledge, and he kind of had this emotional breakdown because he heard very clearly in his ear, jump or leave.
Wow.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think that's about?
Interesting. It kind of seems like he was in her way.
Well, that's funny. Like, jump or leave, jackass. It's time for me to
Right?
jump off this ledge again. I like
Well,
that.
it does seem that there is the spirit of a young woman that that's her place, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Okay, so when people die, they typically, there's kind of a joke about, go to the light, or I don't know if it's a joke, but it's gotten to be a kind of a cliche thing. But that's
Right.
really what happens when people cross over. And lots of people that have had NDEs have had this experience, that they do cross
Mm-hmm.
through kind of a hallway of sorts and through a light.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you leave a lot of things here. You leave fear, guilt, pain, lower vibrating emotions typically don't really exist much on the other side,
Right.
or however you want to classify that. Everybody has different terms. It's no matter,
Mm-hmm.
same place. But anyway, occasionally when people die, they don't cross over. They don't go through that light. Sometimes it's by choice. Sometimes it is by fear. Sometimes it's by just utter confusion. We've seen all
Mm-hmm.
of those things over in the years of our practicing. But
For sure.
um, I feel like in the case of this young woman, she did not cross over because what she did would have been considered a sin. And she's not going anywhere because she doesn't want to get in trouble. So she's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of staying in that place. Hopefully a medium can work with her at some point and help her to move on,
Right.
because she doesn't have to be there. She's also not in trouble. But
Right.
I feel like she was raised in a, very puritanical home where suicide would have been considered a terrible sin, where you were definitely going to hell to be tortured for what you did. And so
Mm-hmm.
she has not gone because she's afraid. So she just continues to hang out in that spot. And again, people see her. So this is her habit. This is what she does because she gets seen. I don't think she liked him being there. He was in her spot. And so she told him to go, basically.
There you go. I like that. I mean, get the hell out of the way, dude. I have something I have to continue to repeat
Yeah.
into infinity.
Right. Sad.
Yeah.
Sad. Really sad. She doesn't have to keep doing that. But anyway, she's going to stay right there because she doesn't want to go to hell, where
Yeah.
she would not go anyway. But
Right.
when
But
you
that's her belief.
the beliefs you had in this lifetime you take with you to some degree, I mean, lots
Hmm.
of truths will be revealed, but you at her point in progression, she didn't go any further, so she doesn't know
Right.
really any more than she knew when she was in this life. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's a very confusing, thick place to be.
For sure. For sure. And painful.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So when you look at this place as a whole, because none of these places are really very near each other. I mean, this is 200 square miles.
Yeah.
What do you think is really going on in this part of Massachusetts? I mean, I know you said, realms overlapping. Do you have
Yeah.
anything more to add to that?
Well, I mean, it is a twofold thing because if you are expecting paranormal activity, you're more likely to either notice it or manufacture it, right? I
Hmm.
mean, there's definitely both sides of that. That if you're expecting to get scared, you're more likely to get scared. If you're expecting to have things happen, you may be more likely to have things happen. And yet, I feel like a lot of the accounts that have happened here have been from very normal people, just living normal lives and having some wild stuff go down.
Hmm.
Uh, but I do feel like we have kind of an intersection of different or different layers of existence happening. I think that's why they see Bigfoots here, because I do think that Bigfoot exists on a different dimension. I'm guessing
Hmm.
that those enormous snakes they're seeing do too, you know?
Yeah, well, and people are adamant about having seen thunderbirds, which are
Oh, yeah.
huge eagles. There are even
Hmm.
people who've said they've seen what appear to them to be pterodactyls
Hmm.
in some of in the very famous swamp that's in this area and in the woods.
Well, if you can imagine the idea that there's like 8 layers of paper pushed together, you know,
Yeah,
and occasionally one of those pieces of paper tears, and you can see some of the other pages. That's kind of what's happening there.
yeah,
There, there's an intersection of different worlds, and so they're seeing things there that you don't see in other places.
sure.
Why haven't there been any dead Bigfoots there that we can stuff in our museums? Because it's just a fleeting glimpse. Why have there
Mhm.
been no thunderbirds there that we could taxidermy and show to the world? Same reason. They don't belong here. This isn't their world, but they are making it through enough that you can at least see them from time to time. Yeah, it's a. I know that's a mind bender for people, but I feel like it really helps to explain why people see things that our logic doesn't support.
Right, that we can't find any evidence to actually prove
Hmm.
the existence of. Rhonda and I had the same conversation in the Bigfoot show this week.
Oh, sure.
And that's what I said at that point about Bigfoot as
Hmm.
well, is that, Bigfoot exists on a different plane and
Hmm.
occasionally bleeds through into this one and we see him and then we don't, and
Hmm.
that's why there's no fossil record
Hmm.
of these things. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, especially with Bigfoots, because there actually have been so many sightings and so many like plaster casts of feet and of, different, we've probably gotten closer with Bigfoot than most others, but I feel the
Right.
same way about things like puckwudgies, fairies, elementals
Yes.
like that. I think some beings are much better at sneaking through, from one realm to another than others are. We're so
Hmm.
we're so dense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as humans, we're so dense. We don't go anywhere. We
No.
stay right here.
Yeah.
And if we get lucky,
Unless we're astral traveling, but yeah, physically, no.
yeah.
Our vibration, we could never vibrate high enough, I don't think, to
Mm-mm.
move through physically.
No, probably not. It's probably why little kids see fairies when other people don't, you know,
Right.
and why animals will see things around you that you clearly can't see.
Yeah.
If you've ever been holding a baby who is clearly playing with somebody over your shoulder, you know.
Yes. Yes.
There are those among us that are light enough, vibrate high enough that they can see what we cannot. But that's what I think of that area, is that there's just a lot of intersections there, and it's creating a really high likelihood of having paranormal activity. And now it's become what people do call a hotbed. And so they come here, they expect it. It just creates more of it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So now let's get to the Satanic murders. So
Yes.
this was in Fall River, Massachusetts. It's right there in the Bridgewater Triangle. This was in the early 80s. There were what were believed to be some cult killings going on in that area of prostitutes.
Oh, okay.
There were these rumors, and eventually there were prostitutes reporting this too, that there were satanic rituals being done by a satanic cult out in the woods, and that this was being done by the prostitutes and pimps in the area. And apparently, Fall River was a pretty rough town, and there was a lot of sex work that went on there and a lot of crime that went on there. And so one of the people that reported this actually was Karen Marsden, who was later found murdered very horrifically. She apparently was picked up by some police officers and told them, that she wanted, that they wanted her to take them to these sites that she had told them about, that there were these places in the woods where these satanic rituals were going on, and they wanted her to take them there. And she couldn't do it. She just was panicked and scared to death. She kept talking about her pimp, and she was referring to him as though his name were Satan. And she said he would kill her if he found out she'd been talking to the police. So she asked to be dropped off at a Catholic church called St. Mary's because she wanted to talk to a priest. The police dropped her off there, and she was never seen again.
Oh, boy.
So she was missing for 2 months before part of her skull and some of her other remains were found in the forest outside of town. So this set off massive panic in the area. This was during the Satanic Panic period, or the beginning of it. I think we're still in it, actually. But do you remember?
Yeah, I think we.
Right. Do you remember, and I can't remember the name of the book, but there was this woman who wrote a book with her psychiatrist saying that she had, during hypnotism, he'd hypnotized her, and that she'd had all these memories of being of satanic ritual abuse as a child. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And it eventually was completely debunked. And that's kind of where like implanted memories came up, and memory suggestion and that kind of stuff was really, it was revealed how easily that could happen to a person.
Right. Well, and that created, I mean, anyone watching or listening to this broadcast can probably think back when you were a kid to a place in your area or in your town where you were told, don't go there at night. There's Satan worshipers over there. Don't go under the railroad bridge. Our local park in the play area, no less. We were told, don't go in there at night. That there's Satan worshipers there. That became, I think, a boogeyman to scare kids, to make us behave.
Yes.
But also I think people believed that, There's a comedian.
Well, yeah, but it seemed like all of a sudden it was happening in every community all over the U.S.
All over the U.S. There's a comedian on TikTok named Kevin James Thornton. who talks about this, and he was talking about in his town, it was in one of the dugouts on the Little League field. There were rumors, don't go over there at night. That's where the devil worshippers are at. And he was talking about how hilarious that is as an adult, thinking, now why would anybody in town choose the the first base dugout to be on the Little League field to be the place where we're gonna go worship Satan,
right?
And then we'll hit a few balls. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yes, I
basically every town had one of these.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, Karen Marsden was killed in a really horrific way. They only found, part of her head. They never found her body. Obviously, some very terrible things had happened. Mm-hmm. Now, interestingly, Fall River is where Lizzie Borden's, the whole story about Lizzie Borden, who killed her father and her stepmother with the axe, remember? Yeah. Same town.
Wow. Okay.
So you would think, I don't know, maybe that has something to do with it too. I don't know. So ultimately what happened is that a pimp called Carl Drew, who was apparently the pimp that Karen Marsden said was Satan, and Robin Murphy, who was actually Karen Marsden's girlfriend, mm-hmm. but who was also known as a pimp and a prostitute in her town, were both convicted of Karen Marsden's murder. So Robin Murphy was the star witness against Drew at his murder trial. So she basically flipped on him mm-hmm. for a deal for a second-degree murder charge. And she spun this tale, very graphic tale, about how she was forced to participate in sacrificing Karen Marsden. What was happening here is that Karen Marsden had said, I don't want anything to do with any of you creepy people anymore. I want out. Yeah. This was the story at the time. And so she had to be killed in order, because she knew too much about whatever these weirdos were doing. Mm-hmm. And that was why she was killed. This is the story that was being told.
Okay.
At the time, they talked about, cutting her head off and playing soccer with it out in the woods. They talked about sexually assaulting her body after she was dead. Like all this stuff, this all came from Robin Murphy. Mm-hmm. There was no actual physical evidence that linked either one of them to Karen Marsden's death. And the timeline based on witnesses and where they had both been before and after and all of that stuff never lined up. Mm-hmm. But you have a police force who doesn't like sex workers, doesn't really care when they get killed, doesn't want to deal with this shit anymore. Mm-hmm. You have Robin Murphy, who's coming forward with all this information. And so they just took it and ran with it and really didn't investigate Karen Marsden's death. And so the weird part about this now is that Robin Murphy has completely recanted her testimony against Carl Drew and said she made all of it up, that none of it was true, that none of the satanic shit, that none of it was true at all. And that she also said in her recanting of the story that she didn't participate in Karen Marsden's death at all, even though she pled guilty to second-degree murder. So Carl Drew is still in prison. And this is a much longer story than this, but I'm not going to tell the whole story. I just wanted to give you some of the basics because I want you to be able to look at this and tell us, were these guys, was this real or is this part of Satanic Panic? Here's the crazy part about this. Robin Murphy admits in a parole hearing that she made it all up, that she lied on the stand. And somehow what she said influenced the parole board and they released her.
Wow.
She was out for 7 years. She then got into a relationship with another felon. Her parole officer violated her parole, put her back in prison, and she has been unable to get paroled since.
Wow.
So yeah. And
Wow.
the whole time, Carl Drew continues to sit in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she's recanted everything that was said, that she said. I mean, it was basically her testimony that convicted him.
Wow.
He's still in prison.
Because these were sex workers and this was satanic stuff.
And he was a pimp, and who the fuck cares?
Yeah. Yep. Well, and yeah. That is the information that people wanted to hear, right? Yeah. This was confirmation bias to the T. That if you think that these people are bad and evil, and then you hear that they were doing bad and evil things, that just confirms what you already thought you knew.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So what do you think? I mean, there were other murders too.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them, well, I won't get into all of that. There was actually 3 murders.
Why she said all that stuff?
She wanted him to go to prison.
Yeah.
She was attempting to become a pimp herself. Here's the craziest part about this. Robin Murphy was 17 when all this happened. She was still a minor.
God.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So she was trying to basically take over the streets from him and become the pimp in the community. And she wanted him gone. And this was how she did it. That's basically it.
Okay. So, because see, I still think that he did kill Karen. I do think he did. Do I think it was some satanic nonsense? No, I don't. However, do I think the drugs were stout in these folks? Yes. Yeah. I do.
He was known to drug his girls so that they weren't really in control, and he would get them addicted, and then he would be the only person they could get drugs from.
Well, and he was a very scary and violent person, and horrifically manipulative. And I think that Karen, I agree as well that Karen was trying to get out. I think that's true. I feel like she really didn't want this life. She was seeking help and was trying to get out. So I actually kind of feel like some of the things Robin said were true, except for that I don't know that Robin actually knew that he killed Karen. She just assumed that he did and really wanted him to pay for that, and also just really wanted to take him down. And I don't.
So why though? Why did she take herself down with him? Because she pled guilty to 2nd-degree murder and went to prison for like 20, 25 years.
I don't think she ever thought that she would be there that long. I believe that she had 2 dice that she rolled. One, she was a minor and she was hoping she would get by being tried as, not having the whole book thrown at her because she was a minor. Or her other thought was because there really was no evidence against her, that perhaps once she was put away for a minute, they could appeal that. And because there really was no evidence other than her word that she could recant later, that she would get out. I feel like she gambled. I do. I think that it's fair to say, though, that she was at the time also coming down from a terrible addiction and was also not mentally sound. I feel like if we, were able to take a hard look at her then, right now, from a psychological standpoint, I feel like I doubt that she would have even been allowed to testify because she wasn't sane at the time at all. Now then, lots of years in prison, might have changed for her. But I feel like she She was heavily addicted. She had had an extremely traumatic life and had some mental illness, and this seemed to make sense to her at the time. But I
Mm-hmm.
do believe that he did kill Karen. I do. I think that he was that pissed that she was trying to get out from under him. I also feel like what he really thought she was going to do was move away with Robin and go just turn tricks somewhere else for a different pimp, and he just wasn't going to have it. So I think she called him Satan for good reason, because
Mm-hmm.
of the things he did. Do I think it was actual satanic stuff? No. That just that's just more fuel on the fire.
Right. It did seem as though that narrative really worked to freak people out
Oh yeah.
and to get people really worked up. It still works now.
Hmm.
People will, try to cover a crime by faking some kind of ritualistic thing, and really that has never actually been proven to be an actual thing.
Right.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that because this is a really ugly period in history in Fall River, Massachusetts. And, what it turned out to be later is that there was this man named Andy Matisse, and Andy Matisse was a terrible pedophile, and he
Mm.
molested Robin like every day for 6 years
Oh.
and many other women in the area. And one of the women that was originally attributed to this satanic cult, it turned out that he killed her and he went to prison and he died in prison in 1988.
Wow.
But there's real questions about, what was him, how many others were him, and,
Hmm.
but he was pretty happy to sit back and let somebody else get blamed.
Hmm. Yeah.
But you're dead on about her traumatic childhood because
Oh yeah.
he was a family friend who would drive her to school, and so he would assault her on the way to school every morning.
I don't think
And
things were much better at her house anyway. I mean,
they weren't. No, her mother was very much absent, and basically, mom was just using him to be responsible, so she didn't have to be.
hmm. Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you think about what people attribute to being satanic. It's usually bad people doing bad things. You know?
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, it is, and it's just that I don't know. There's that fear in Christianity
Hmm.
of Satan has gotten blown way out of even just within that belief system. It's gotten blown way out of proportion, and
Hmm.
um,
Well, but it's interesting. It's almost a gaslight, right?
mhm,
Because it takes the responsibility to some degree off of the wrongdoer and onto the supernatural force
right,
rather than, this guy
hmm
was a murderer, and murdered Karen. No, we have to go into this whole narrative that they were worshiping Satan and Satan made them do it. No,
right, yeah,
people do bad things. People do
yeah,
bad things. And I am not here to attack anybody's religion. And if, you believe in Satan and hell and things, I mean, more power to you. But I think it's really interesting how we have somehow in our society used that term, to create a lot of fear, but then also let really bad people off the hook to some degree because Satan got to them
right,
rather than that they used their own agency to do terrible things.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That's an excellent point. Well, the Bridgewater Triangle is very interesting, and there
Yeah.
are tons more stories than just this. Certainly couldn't cover it all in one episode, but go learn about it. This is a place where there's been paranormal activity there as far back as anyone can remember being reported by indigenous people long before us white people showed up and really screwed things up for them.
Yeah.
Clear up until present day. So pretty interesting that there are spots like this that are hot spots. And I love your description that this is a place where different what did you say, realms or
portals intersect or realms.
portals
Yeah.
intersect with one
Layers.
another.
It's an interesting study. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of theories out there about how there's just many worlds laid upon one another,
Yes.
And I believe
And
that's
they all
true.
vibrate at a different frequency, and sometimes they intersect briefly.
But we really are in shared space. Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely believe that. If we could see it all, I don't think that what we're living looks anything like what we're actually living. So
Yeah. Yes.
if I could
Agreed.
say it that way. Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you very much for that.
You bet. Thank you.
I
That was
appreciate
awesome.
it. Yeah. Well, today is Wednesday.
Yes.
And we will be back tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain with our live stream, which is the case updates for the week. And that is a live stream on YouTube and Facebook. We love it if you can come live and join the chat with us. And then we'll be back on Thursday with another live stream, and that is also at 7 p.m. Mountain. It's also on Facebook and YouTube, and it is the Psychic Hour. And this is the first Thursday of the month, so it will be our marching orders show.
Yes, it will.
Where we do a reading for every sun sign to give you an idea of kind of what to expect and what to work on throughout the month of September.
Yeah, we love the marching orders show.
Yes, it is a lot of fun. And of course, we have lots of other great stuff coming. And we do have a brand new level to our membership over at YouTube. And that is our True Crime Cold Read Party. And that will happen once a month. It is a live stream for members only. And you can come, and each person in the chat gets to throw a case at us with just a couple of sentences of description, and we will do a cold read on it. You have to ask us a question, tell us what you want to know, and we will cold read it live in the cold read party. So if you would like to join that, click join on the homepage of our YouTube channel, and you'll have a couple of options. You'll have the cold read party and also Spirit School, which is where we teach our metaphysical classes. If you are in Spirit School, you get the cold read party as a bonus. So we will be doing that for the very first time next week. So on the 14th of September, we will be doing that for the very first time. It is also at 7 p.m. Mountain. And we're going to have a blast. We're really excited. So, bring us your favorite case.
Yeah.
Be prepared to give us a little bit of information and ask us a question, and we will cold read it for you. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I love it. It's going to be great.
So in order to attend, you have to join that membership beforehand. So be sure to go to YouTube, click join, and follow the instructions. But we really are looking forward to getting that started with you all.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's going to be
all
great.
Right. Well, you know it. We are True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Take care.